You know that feeling like your mind is just a ceiling light that you can never ever turn off? It just illuminates everything. Every little detail, every awkward pause, every unspoken bit of tension in a room, even when you are just desperate for a break. Well, today, we're going to dive into the psychology of being too aware. It's this fascinating state of mind that can feel like a total superpower, but also a really heavy burden.
Yeah, this quote really just nails the feeling, doesn't it? Because we're not talking about a warm, cozy lamp that guides you through the dark. Oh no, this is more like a harsh, clinical spotlight, the kind that reveals everything, the good, the bad, all of it. Nothing gets to be blurry. There's just no room for that comfy feeling of, simply not knowing.
Okay, so let's start by really digging into what this constant state of alertness actually feels like from the inside. This is such a great way to picture the difference. See, for most people, the world kinda has a dimmer switch, right? You notice what you need to, and everything else just sort of fades into the background. But for a mind that's always on, that dimmer switch is just gone, broken. Every single detail stays sharp, lit up, and it's all demanding your attention.
And look, this is way more than just overthinking. It's a state where you're not really living your life, you're constantly monitoring it. You feel that shift in a room's energy before anyone even says a word. You can sense the tension bubbling right under the surface of a totally calm conversation. It's like your nervous system is just stuck in scan mode, always interpreting, because it literally doesn't know how to stop.
So, what is actually going on here on a psychological level? Let's get into the mechanics of this constant self-observation. A good way to think about it is like you're living with a second screen always running in the background of your mind.
The big idea here is something called metacognition. It's a fancy word for thinking about your own thinking. Now, we all do this from time to time, right? But for someone who's too aware, this isn't occasional. It is a constant running commentary. That internal critic, that inner analyst, well, they're always on the clock. And here's how that process of self-interruption plays out. It starts with the real feeling. Maybe you're sad or happy, whatever. But then, almost instantly, poof, you step outside of it. You become an observer of your own emotion. You start analyzing it, asking why you feel that way, if it's even justified. And right there, in that moment of dissection, the original pure experience, it's just gone.
This metaphor just hits the nail on the head. It's like you can get so good at understanding your own internal wiring that you perfect all the steps of your emotional responses. But the trade-off? It's huge. You lose the music. You lose that spontaneous, unanalyzed joy of just being there.
All right, so this constant monitoring, it definitely comes at a cost. Let's talk about the heavy toll, both emotional and physical, that this level of awareness can take.
So we can kind of break down the costs into three big areas. First up, you've got empathetic absorption. That's when you don't just get how others feel, you actually take on their feelings. Then there's this loss of innocence, where you start seeing all the hidden mechanics behind how people interact. And finally, there's the very real physical anxiety that comes from your body being on high alert all the time. And that first one, empathetic absorption, is just so draining. You know what I mean? You walk into a room where there's tension and suddenly your chest feels tight. A friend's unspoken sadness, it just follows you all the way home. You end up being the emotional container for everyone else, absorbing and translating it all. It's like you're not just carrying your own nervous system around, you're carrying theirs too.
And this whole awareness thing, it's not just in your head, it's physical. There's a term for it, interoception. It's basically your ability to sense what's going on inside your body. For folks who are hyper-aware, this system is cranked up to 11. So a little flutter in your stomach isn't just a flutter. Nope, it's data. It's a warning sign. And this can kick off a nasty feedback loop where every little sensation gets flagged as a threat, which just feeds this cycle of anxiety. Okay, this next part is a really crucial turning point in how we think about this. What if this thing that feels like a flaw isn't a flaw at all? What if it's actually a highly developed survival skill?
Because this level of awareness doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It has an origin story. And for a lot of people, that story starts in childhood. It didn't begin as a personality trait, but as a necessary adaptation. Think about it. If you're in an unpredictable environment, learning to read subtle cues, tiny shifts in tone, changes in mood, that wasn't just being smart. It was absolutely essential for staying safe.
You can really see the progression here. It starts off as a coping mechanism when you're a kid. Your nervous system gets really good at scanning for any hint of trouble. Over time, that skill becomes a core part of who you are as an adult. But here's the tragic part. That system, the one that was built to protect you, it doesn't know the danger's over, so it just keeps scanning and scanning and scanning, even when you're perfectly safe. And this right here shows the huge mental shift that can happen when you understand this. The story you tell yourself changes. It goes from, "Ugh, something is wrong with me, I overthink everything," to something much kinder. My sensitivity was forged in adaptation. It was a skill for survival. That reframes everything.
Let's just let that sink in for a second, because it's a really powerful idea. You weren't born with a flaw. You became this way because paying incredibly close attention once mattered. A lot.
So, understanding where this comes from is huge. But what do you do now? How do you live with this awareness in a healthier way? Let's talk about a path toward finding some balance.
And this is maybe the single most important idea to take away from all of this. The solution isn't to try and see less. It's about learning to carry less. It's not about trying to dull your senses or become less perceptive. It's about managing the burden, not trying to dim that light.
So here are a few quiet, gentle truths you can practice to help recalibrate that overactive system. Just reminding yourself, not every silence is a secret message. Not every feeling needs to be fixed or solved. And not every insights you have needs to be shared or analyzed to death. Each one of these is a small, powerful way to start setting down some of that weight.
And this really frames the two paths your awareness can take. If you have no boundaries, it just turns into suffering and total exhaustion because you're absorbing everything. But if you can create some conscious, gentle boundaries, that very same awareness, it transforms into real clarity and wisdom.
And please remember this, because it's so important. Setting these kinds of boundaries doesn't mean you lose your depth. You don't lose your insight. This isn't about becoming shallow. It's about reclaiming your own presence, your ability to be in your life, instead of always being on the outside monitoring it. So I want to leave you with this question to think about. What happens when your awareness stops being a burden and becomes more of a companion? What could change if that deep awareness, the thing that maybe felt like a relentless spotlight, could instead become a quiet, wise friend on your journey? What would that feel like, to be guided by its wisdom instead of being exhausted by its vigilance?